Hi, and welcome to the Raw, Real, and Rebelicious podcast. My name is Michelle Rebel Coops, and as a personal branding coach, I guide and mentor high-achieving professionals and entrepreneurs to liberate themselves from the invisible shackles that keep them from expressing themselves authentically and unapologetically in work, life, and even love. I believe we can all become our own powerhouse and become true leaders of our lives. So let's explore how you can become who you're meant to be. A free, radiant, joyful, and juicy creature of love who takes charge like a true leader does. Hi guys, and welcome to this next podcast edition. So in this podcast, I'd like to speak a little bit more around trauma, about the fears that can come up, the fears that can play out, triggered by all these different things that can happen in our lives, different situations that we're in. And actually, the reason why I came up with this specific subject is very, very personal. There have been some things playing out in my personal life that have been a very interesting entrance into myself. So a little bit of background information maybe. For me, I believe that our love life is this wonderful opportunity to really face our fears head on. There are hardly other people that get so close to us as our lovers. This is one of the reasons why I mentioned that personal branding is something that affects you in every part of your life, including your love life. And it's so important to know who you are and how you want to show up before you actually engage into a connection with someone else. And it doesn't mean that you have to be fixed or you need to have it all figured out, because we're never fixed and we're never done. But the more autonomous you are, the more congruently and the more authentic you can actually show up in this love relationship. Now, over the past years, over many years, I have had the opportunity to connect with people, lovers, on a very deep level. And I'm very, very grateful for all of them because they've really taught me a lot of lessons. Now, having said that, I've also noticed that many of these lovers were really into me, and I was really into them, and we connected on such a deep, profound level, and it was really, really beautiful, actually. So again, I'm very thankful. But in many cases, I also saw the same thing playing out in the dynamics, and this was a pattern for me, definitely, where there was this polarity of wanting to not having the courage to really commit, but also being afraid of being abandoned, and it is that polarity that is usually something that really plays out. So what I would notice is that these men fell head over heels in love with me, and I with them, and it was amazing. And then at some point, of course, after a while, as in any relationship, fears, traumas, limiting beliefs would come up and would be a reason for the men to pull back. Now, this is something that I've seen over years that is very different in men and women. Men generally pull back, whereas women just want to connect through all the fears. We need connection, we want to talk. This is a very different coping mechanism. And what I've noticed is that because I've seen it happen, that men basically disappeared, disconnected, just stepped out of contact, basically. Of course, that created a fear within me, like, hey, what is wrong with me? What's going on with me here? Why am I, apparently I'm too much. What am I doing wrong here? And I really did a real deep dive into that to discover my own patterns, etc., etc. Which was good because I needed to do that work. And I believe that all these dynamics have been an opportunity for me to grow. But at the same time, they also left some scars of me being afraid to really express myself fully, I really started blaming myself for being too much, for being not the safe option because of who I am. And I'm someone who is very free and very liberated. This triggered fear in men, and they've told me that later on. I mean, all of these men at some point came back and expressed how either they regretted the decision to walk away or to just disconnect like that. And they also expressed that they had some kind of fear around believing that they're not good enough, that they would never be enough for me. And for that reason, they felt inadequate. And it was all these fears in them that were playing out, and a reason for them to actually step out and not commit, not talk about it, not be vulnerable in it, to just disconnect and leave. Now, obviously, needless to say, I do not want a partner who disconnects like that. I want a partner, whether it's a man or a woman, who is courageous enough to actually lean in, to drop in, and to decide, yes, all right, I'm going to go full on into it. Whatever fears are going to come up, whatever childhood traumas I'm going to have to face, I will lean in and, be vulnerable and be real. Now, today I was thinking about this, and I was taking a walk outside because I felt today that all these fears were coming up, and I decided, what works for me is to just go out and spend time in nature. And that started, the energy started flowing. I'll go a little bit more into that later, but what I realized at some point, because the energy started flowing within me, I started getting these insights, realizing that I have been blaming myself for this, and I have been looking at myself like, what is it that I need to change? What is it that I need to do differently? How do I need to adjust myself so that, or maybe express myself a little bit less so that these men will not feel too overwhelmed? And the truth is, what I realized today is that no. This is not my thing to solve here. This should not become something that I will start repressing. I should not repress who I am in my vulnerability, in my authenticity, just so that these men won't be triggered. Whatever trigger they're getting through me, through the connection that we have, the intensity and the amazing beauty that we can experience, whatever triggers come up, I want someone who will face those triggers and fears head on. So it is not my job. I would do them a disservice if I would not express myself fully and not be who I am. I realized today in that moment that I have been blaming myself for the fact that they left, that they were not ready to embrace their fear, so that maybe I just wasn't the right person for them and it just wasn't in alignment. But I've been blaming myself. I thought it was my fault and I needed to adjust. And I realize, of course, today, not just today, I know that, I've known that before, but this is just one of the things that came up to me today, is that, it's never my fault. It is never your fault either when something plays out. But it is our responsibility. Now, let me explain the difference. It is not our fault that we've been programmed to think certain things, to believe certain things, to be conditioned. It is just conditioning outside of us. It's not our fault that something happens or that we get responsive in some way, that we respond to things. Same way, it's not their fault that they're triggered and that they're scared. There's no blame. It's nobody's fault that they behave in a certain way when they're unconsciously triggered by something that has been happening in their past. But it is our responsibility at some point, once we gain awareness of this, to actually work through it. It is a responsibility to act upon this. So it might not be our fault that these things have happened in the past, but it's our responsibility to change this in the present and in the future, to work through it, to actually accept ourselves and our uniqueness instead of trying to adjust ourselves to others. It is our responsibility as human beings not to fall in the trap of blaming ourselves, you know? We should not be reactive only, you know, to adjust ourselves to other people's needs, to actually blame ourselves and to think that we need to change here. Of course, there's growth and we will always change in some way, but it is important for all of us to embrace all of our unique powers, who we really are, and step into that despite what we've learned in the past, that some people may not be ready for that. We can still own our power. Now, why is it important to work through this? Well, because I believe that these kind of traumas and fears and all the shit that can come up, whether it's in our love life or in our own business, because I truly believe that once you become an entrepreneur, for example, or you step into a new role in your career, this will bring shit up. And it's usually traumas and fears that affect every part of our lives, our career, love lives, friendship, etc., etc. So whatever the trigger may be, whether it's something that you have to do a presentation, for example, in your business or in your job, or whether it's your new love or your existing partner that brings up shit, this will have an effect in every part of our lives. And I believe that by working through this, we can definitely improve the rest of our lives as well. And also because I think it's important to work through this, because otherwise we stop ourselves from being as brilliant as we are. If we don't work through it, we stop ourselves. And another reason is that working through it will actually help you to truly connect with yourself. To connect with yourself as well as others on a deeper level. You know, when you're truly connected to yourself because you've worked through the trauma, and you're feeling, you know the fears that are playing out, and you're honest with yourself, you're vulnerable with yourself, you become so real and raw, actually it's raw, real, and rebellious, that way you're not rejecting yourself anymore. And that will actually help you, that, whenever someone else is rejecting you, it won't feel as a personal rejection. It's just them not being ready. And that way you can connect with others on a deeper level as well, and being there authentically from a place of love. And I can tell you that when you work through this, life becomes so much more fulfilling. It is bliss, truly is. Now, obviously, the question is, how can you work through this? And this podcast does not give me enough time and space to actually go through all the details. But what I will do is give you some specific or some hands-on tips that may help you along the way. Now, what you need to understand first and foremost is that the problem has been created in your monkey brain and your nervous system, your unconscious brain that is here to help to protect you and to help you respond really quickly when you need to. So it's not a conscious thing. But once you bring it into your consciousness, once you realize that this is just your nervous system reacting, then you can see it playing out. It's all about bringing it to awareness. Once you understand and see what's playing out, then you can actually do something about it, and you have a choice to respond differently. What you need to understand here, though, is that you cannot solve it with reasoning only. Yes, you can talk and you can analyze and you can be in your head and in your mind. It will help you to get some kind of perspective and clarity and understanding. So definitely talking to friends about it will help, but it's not the only way. It won't solve it. So here's what I do. I distance myself by knowing that it's not me. It is actually a bodily reaction to past experience. Now, let me explain that a little bit more. So I just mentioned that it is a problem that is created in our monkey brain, our nervous system. And this is actually, our body is responding. Our body, so our nervous system, is responding to this past experience that has allowed these neurological patterns to exist and to grow. But it's not who we really are. Our true essence is actually that love and abundance, and it's our heart and our soul, and we're so much more than our body in itself. And by distancing myself from that nervous system and knowing this is not me, it's just my body responding to the past. It's not what's happening in this moment. It's not a present experience. It is only, I'm just triggered by something right now that is reminding me of something in the past, So I distance myself from what's happening now, realizing that it's actually just a trigger. It's just something that I'm triggered by that has happened before. So that in itself helps me. Then the second thing that I do is I sit with it. And the key here is that you do not reject yourself. You do not reject the fact that you feel fear, because it's so easy for us to judge ourselves and to judge that we're again stuck in this fear and we're stuck in shit and oh my God, this playing out. I thought I solved this and what's wrong with me and I need to fix this. No, you don't need to fix anything. What you need to do is surrender to it and sit with it and embrace it. It is your ego that is playing out. It is your ego. It is your childhood trauma. And that inner child, that little girl or that little boy just needs a fucking hug. So don't reject yourself. Accept it. Accept all the shit and embrace it. Truly embrace it. Now, the third thing that I do is I move my body. Like I said a little bit before, is I really need to move and I need to get the flow starting again, because whenever I feel triggers or I feel some kind of tension, that means that my body is tensing up as well. This is tension that can actually get stuck in my body. I feel it. I feel myself clench. I feel my heart contracting. I feel all these things in my body. But by moving, mainly by going out into nature, by moving, by walking, I can let it flow again and things start flowing in my body. This, for me, is a massive, massive solution to when I feel fear. I go out in nature and connect. For me, this is a heart-opening exercise or practice, actually. It's a heart-opening practice. And this is really what it's about, because all the fear, all the primary responses are mind. It is head. It is just something that happens within that brain. And we actually want to sink into our heart space. We want to really connect to our heart consciously. And we do that by moving our bodies, by dancing. We do that by being creative. We do that by connecting with nature, gardening, for example. Anything that does not involve the mind too much. Anything that feels expansive, that you really like to do. Because this can get things flowing. So again, just to sum up, know that it's not you, it is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to actually understand that your past does not define your present and that you can actually change this. You don't change it by solving it with reasoning only. You change it by actually sitting with it and embracing all your fears, allowing them to be there, surrendering to it. Sometimes all it needs is a hug, and all you need is a hug, and to actually embrace this. Let it be a part of that current experience, because once it's here in awareness, often it disappears by itself. And the second, start moving your body, being creative, doing something with your hands. I genuinely hope that this has helped you. I'd love to find out if this resonates and how this works for you. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And for now, I'm going to wish you a wonderful day. Ciao. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're hungry for more, please check out my Brand Rebel app in the App Store or the Play Store. Just simply type in Be a Brand Rebel and you will find it instantly. It's free and it's fun. For now, have a magical day. Stay raw, stay real, and stay rebelicious.